Hare Krishna, welcome to this special program on the systematic study of the topmost revealed scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we begin today's session, I shall chant a few prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome all the viewers again to this special program on the systematic study of the topmost of all the Vedic scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have already come to the study of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which in the first 3 chapters of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains a total of 19 chapters and 851 verses of shlokas, the first 3 chapters contain the wonderful and amazing history of a personality by name Ajamila. Ajamila, although being completely engaged in a lot of sinful activities, yet at the time of his death, simply by chanting the holy name of Narayana, attained the highest perfection of spiritual liberation. The glories of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, which is non-different from the Supreme Lord Himself, have very beautifully and elaborately been explained in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And after this, in the 4th chapter of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is the history of the son of the 10 Prachetas. The 10 Prachetas, whose history has been explained in the previous 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The 10 Prachetas, the sons of King Prachina Barhi, they married Marisha, and the Prachetas and Marisha had a son by name Daksha Prajapati. Now there are 2 Daksha Prajapatis, one Daksha Prajapati in the first Manvantara or the Swayambhuva Manvantara, in which Daksha Prajapati married Prasuti, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, and later Daksha and Prasuti had 16 daughters, out of whom the youngest one was Sati, who became the consort, the wife of Lord Shiva. So that is the first birth of Daksha Prajapati, in which he also committed grave offenses at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva, due to which Lord Shiva, out of his anger, generated a very powerful being by name Veerabhadra, who came to the sacrificial arena of Daksha Prajapati and severed his head, severed his neck. And later, by the intervention of the Devatas headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva forgave the offensive Daksha Prajapati, and he was reaffixed with the head of a basta or a goat. So that is the history of the first birth of Daksha Prajapati. And now in the 4th chapter of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the history of the second birth of Daksha Prajapati. The same Daksha Prajapati was again reborn in the 6th Manvantara, that is known as the Chakshusha Manvantara, as the son of the Prachetas and Marisha. So in this lifetime, Daksha Prajapati again became a Prajapati or a progenitor of various living beings, and entrusted with this task and responsibility, Daksha Prajapati went to a very isolated, a secluded place in the mountains, and performed severe penance and austerities. He specifically engaged in the chanting of a very sacred prayer by name Hamsa Guhya Prarthana. Hamsa Guhya Prarthana, which is a set of prayers to the Supreme Lord Vishnu found in the Vedic literatures. So Daksha Prajapati specifically offered these prayers, and I shall just chant the first among the Hamsa Guhya Prarthana, which was also offered by Daksha Prajapati, and which is mentioned in 6.4.23 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Prajapatiruvacha Namah Paraya Vitathanubhutaye Gunatrayabhasa Nimitta Bandhave Adrishtadhamne Gunatattva Buddhivir Nivrittamanaya Dadhe Swayambhuve. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to all influence of the illusory energy and the physical categories that is produced in material nature. The Supreme Lord possesses the potency of infinite knowledge and has supreme willpower. He is the supreme controller of all the living entities as well as the illusory potency. The conditioned souls who have accepted this material manifestation as everything cannot see the Supreme Lord, because He is always above the realm of any kind of an experimental knowledge. He is self-evident, self-sufficient, and He is not caused by any other cause, anything superior to Him. So He is the original cause of all causes, and let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. So in this way, Daksha Prajapati offered these very, very beautiful composition called the Hamsa Guhya prayers, and finally he was blessed by the Supreme Lord that he would attain the fulfillment of his desire to beget a lot of children, especially a lot of sons. So, being blessed in this manner, Daksha Prajapati was very happy, delighted, and he came back to his kingdom, to his capital. And Daksha Prajapati in this life, in the first birth, the wife of Daksha Prajapati is called Prasuti. And now in this birth, the wife of Daksha Prajapati is Asikni. So Daksha Prajapati and Asikni in course of time gave birth to a set of 10,000 sons who were collectively known as the Haryashvas. So Daksha Prajapati was very happy to obtain 10,000 sons whom he thought would also greatly assist him in the Prajasarga, in the creation of various living entities that would populate this universe. So Daksha Prajapati, after some time, asked the 10,000 Haryashvas, his sons, to also engage in penance and austerities and seek the blessings of the Supreme Lord, and in this manner also increase the population of this world. So it is also very important to note that although Daksha Prajapati was a highly materialistic person with materialistic principles of life, yet he had the knowledge and he was aware of the fact that unless the right kind of penance or a method is followed, even for creating progeny or even for conception of children, the quality of children would not be so good, and therefore to have a very good quality of progeny, he encouraged his sons, the 10,000 Haryashvas, to engage in penance and austerities so that they would be advanced in these principles, especially the spiritual principles, by which they would be able to procreate a good population. So being commanded by their father, the 10,000 Haryashvas, who were very obedient to the orders and the wills of their superiors, set out from their kingdom and came to the western coast of the ocean, the place, the location where the sacred Sindhu river, which is presently known as the Indus river, joins the sea. So the confluence of the Sindhu river with the sea is a very sacred and holy place known as Narayana Sarovara. This place, Narayana Sarovara, is still currently existing in the state of Gujarat, in the province, in the district of Kutch. This place is still there, called Narayana Sarovara. It is almost on the border of India with Pakistan. So at this very sacred holy place, the 10,000 Haryashvas arrived and prepared to engage in very severe penance and austerities. They followed all the rules and regulations for performing tapascharya, penances, and as they were about to begin, at that place came the great sage Narada Muni. Narada Muni, who wanders all over the universe for the highest good, for the supreme benefit of all the living entities, by enlightening them with the highest spiritual knowledge about the devotional service to the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So when Narada came here and came across the 10,000 Haryashvas, he began to consider their situation, that they are such obedient and such disciplined boys. They are young boys, full of youthful energy, vigor, and they are so disciplined, obedient. They are so nicely engaged in tapascharya, in tapasya, in penances and austerities in a very systematic manner. But for what purpose? All of these Haryashvas are going to perform tapasya with the objective, with the purpose of begetting more children, or to get married and beget children. So Narada considered this, that this is such a wasteful, this is such a criminal waste of austerity and of their youthful energies. So Narada now decided to properly channelize, to properly direct all their youthful energies for the purpose of engaging in tapasya of austerities, so that they understand the highest objective of life to be the attainment of the eternal supreme kingdom of the Supreme Lord, to go back home, back to Godhead. That should be the highest objective of performing any tapasya. As we have already heard in the earlier cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, third chapter, it is clearly said that Vasudeva Para Veda, and likewise in the second canto, in the sixth chapter, also Lord Brahma says that Narayana Param Tapaha. The objective of all a performance of tapasya, of penance and austerities, is to attain the Supreme Lord Vasudeva Shri Krishna. So now Narada approached the 10,000 Haryashvas, and in just a few verses he explained the actual truth and situation of the entire material world, how the material world is the place of thorough and complete bondage of all the living entities, and the real purpose of the human form of life is to attain moksha, liberation from all material bondage of this material world. And he gave a very beautiful illustration with 10 objects. Narada gave an example of a deep hole in which there is an ugly lady, and in which there is a razor sharp object, and in this way, with 10 illustrations, with 10 examples, he explained, he actually they say Artha Garbhita. These few verses were pregnant with meaning, a lot of understanding and truth was completely packaged by Narada in these few verses, and it was presented by Narada. And the 10,000 Haryashvas, as soon as they heard these instructions given by the great sage Narada, because their consciousness was thoroughly cleansed and purified by the performance of tapasya, they could immediately grasp the deep meanings in the instructions of Narada, in which he had in every sentence, he had concluded by saying that Kim asat karma bhir bhavet. Therefore, this being the case, what is the need, what is the use, what is the benefit of engaging in materialistic activities? So, the Haryashvas could now unravel, could unlock the real understanding of all the illustrations that Narada Muni had presented in his teachings, and they could understand that all material activities are completely futile and worthless, and the real objective of the human form of life is to engage in spiritual activities in order to attain the highest liberation and go back home, back to Godhead. So in this way, the Haryashvas, being fully convinced of this matter, gave up their austerities for begetting progeny, and they completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and in a very short time they all attained moksha, and they went back home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world, to Vaikuntha Loka. Now, when news of the Haryashva's renunciation reached their father, that is Daksha Prajapati. Daksha Prajapati was a highly materialistic person, and he could not appreciate the greatest service given by the greatest benefit given by Narada Muni to his sons. He in fact took it on a contrary perspective, and he thought that Narada Muni had done a great disservice by diverting these young boys on the path of complete renunciation and detachment from the material world. So anyway, Daksha Prajapati somehow tolerated this great pain of being separated from his sons, and his sons, he came to know, had become great Paramahamsas and had attained the ultimate destination of returning back to the spiritual world. So now Daksha Prajapati once more engaged in severe penance and austerities with the same objective of begetting more children. And this time again, by the blessings of the Supreme Lord, Daksha Prajapati, this time with his wife Asikni, begot a group of 1,000 sons, who were collectively known as the Savalashvas. So these Savalashvas, who were 1,000 in number, as they attained their youthhood, they were again asked by Daksha Prajapati to assist him in the process of increasing the population of this world. But again, Daksha instructed them to engage in the path of tapasya, of performing austerities, so that they would have a good progeny for a good population of this world. So on the command of Daksha Prajapati, the 1,000 Savalashvas again set out, and they came on the western bank of the western shore of the ocean, again to the same spot, to the same place where the Sindhu river joins the sea, the ocean, the very sacred place of Narayana Sarovara. And coming to Narayana Sarovara, they also very faithfully, very obediently prepared themselves to engage in tapasya, in penance and austerities. At that time, again, at that place came the great sage Narada Muni, who travels all over the universe by his own sweet free will for the highest good and for the supreme benefit of all living entities by awakening their spiritual consciousness. Now again, when Narada observed that the 1,000 Savalashvas, young boys with such youthful vigor and energy, were so obediently engaging in the rules and regulations of penance and austerities. But again, for what purpose? Narada considered that they were going to engage in tapasya for the very inferior purpose of begetting children, to get married, enter household affairs and beget more and more children. So again, Narada became very compassionate and decided that there should not be such a criminal waste of tapasya, and they should be properly guided and properly instructed. So here we should understand that many times people become very anxious and agitated if their children show an inclination, show some interest in spiritual activities. They in fact become quite fearful that where my son or my child would take up sannyasa, would take up the path of renunciation. Actually, there is nothing to worry. This is the best, the perfect, the ultimate use of the human form of energy, the utilization of the human energy, time and all human capabilities is ultimately served in the spiritual culture and the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So if a child is going towards a spiritual path or engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, this should not be a cause of anxiety, but should be the cause of great jubilation and happiness. So now Narada again approached the 1000 Savalashvas and very cryptically, in a very condensed manner, again explained the true nature of the material world with all its miseries and sufferings, and how the real purpose and objective of the human form of life is to gain liberation from material bondage and attain the supreme kingdom of the Supreme Lord. And Narada also mentioned that all of you should follow the path, the footsteps taken by your elder brothers, the 10,000 Haryashvas. So now Savalashvas, who were also purified in their consciousness by the practice of penance and austerities, immediately could grasp the deep meaning of the instructions of Narada and properly understood and realized all his teachings, and immediately gave up their material objectives of penances. They left from that place and completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord Krishna in pure devotional service, and within a very short time, even the 1000 Savalashvas got liberation and went back home, back to Godhead. Now, for the second time, when such a news reached Daksha Prajapati that his sons had been instructed by Narada to take up the spiritual path of life, and they have taken the complete path of renunciation, Daksha Prajapati this time was intolerably furious, and after some time, Narada himself came to the palace of Daksha Prajapati. In fact, Daksha Prajapati was born this time in the family of Dhruva Maharaj. And practically from the Swayambhuva Manvantara, the first Manvantara up to the sixth Manvantara, all the saintly kings of the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu were properly guided and delivered by the instructions of the great sage Narada. So Narada thought, everyone has been delivered so far. I have been able to preach and properly guide all the saintly kings of the family of Swayambhuva Manu. So let me also try to preach the Bhagavata Dharma to Daksha Prajapati as well. So that is the missionary spirit of Narada. So he came to the palace of Daksha Prajapati, who was boiling, who was seething with anger, and when he saw Narada, he became even more angry and hurled many insults and accusations at Narada, how he had done a great disservice by misguiding young boys on the path of material detachment and renunciation. Finally, Daksha Prajapati cursed Narada that he would not be able to stay in one place for more than 3 days. So this was the curse of Daksha Prajapati on Narada. For a materialistic householder like Daksha Prajapati, this kind of a curse may be a very, very terrible thing to happen, that if somebody is cursed that he will not be able to stay in his home or in one place for more than 3 days. The person may go crazy, may go mad, that what would happen to him. He would come down to the streets, he would go to the highway, and like they say that either my way or the highway. So if one comes to the highway, to the street, it would be such a difficult thing in life. But for a renunciant like Narada, who is always constantly wandering all over the universe, this kind of a curse, although Daksha's curse upon Narada could have been easily counteracted by Narada. He could have taken it as a very insignificant thing and could have not allowed the effect of the curse upon him. Yet Narada himself said, Badham iti, let it be so, because Narada took it not as a curse but as a blessing, that he would be able to travel even more intensively and even more intensively preach the Bhagavata Dharma, the message and teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this way, the great sage Narada was able to deliver practically all the personalities in the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu, but he was unable to help, to provide spiritual help and upliftment to the materialistically absorbed Daksha Prajapati. So after some time, Daksha Prajapati then again engaged in a lot of penance and austerities, and this time he specifically prayed that he should not have any sons, because Daksha Prajapati was convinced that if I have any sons, they will not be left by Narada. Narada would come and teach them the path of renunciation and bhakti, and therefore this time Daksha Prajapati was careful to beget only daughters, and this time Daksha Prajapati begot 60 daughters, out of which 27 of the daughters of Daksha Prajapati and Asikni are the 27 presiding deities of the 27 nakshatras, the 27 stars, who were married to Chandra, or the demigod of moon, the Chandra Devata. So we now proceed to the next section of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have heard till now the liberation of the sons of Daksha Prajapati, the Haryashvas and the Savalashvas. Now we move on to a very, very wonderful, one of the most fascinating and wonderful histories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the history of Vritrasura. The history of Vritrasura. So there are many chapters of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. From now onwards, the entire portion of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam explains the wonderful history of Vritrasura. Now, someone might wonder that why does Srimad Bhagavatam focus so much on the history of an Asura? Asura means a demon. So this Asura by name Vritra or Vritrasura is a very, very special demon because he was also a very great Mahabhagavata, a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So let us now hear the wonderful story of Vritrasura. So long time back, once in the Svargaloka, in the heavenly planets, where all the devatas reside and the king of the heavenly planets is Indra. So once when Indra was seated in his royal assembly and he was being praised by many Gandharvas and Apsaras, and Indra was seated in the royal assembly, and at that time he was also puffed up with a lot of false ego, and exactly at that time the Guru, the spiritual master of the Devatas, Brihaspati, arrived at that place. And when Brihaspati arrived to this royal assembly, Indra did not rise up to show respect to his Guru, to his spiritual master Brihaspati. This was certainly a very great mistake, a very great offense on the part of Indra to his spiritual master, to his Guru Brihaspati. And Brihaspati, observing the pride, the impetuousness of the audacity of Indra, he just left from that place and went away. After a little time, Indra realized his great folly of dishonoring his own spiritual master, the great personality Brihaspati, and realized his mistake and went everywhere in search of Brihaspati but was unable to find him. And at that time the demons heard of this offense committed by Indra, and they were sure that Indra would have become greatly weakened due to this offense committed by him to his Guru. So the demons now launched an attack on the Devatas in the heavenly planets, and truly the Devatas had been weakened due to their because they were bereft of the blessings of their spiritual master, whereas the demons worshipped their Guru, that is Shukracharya, and by his blessings conquered the Devatas. They could easily defeat the Devatas, who now ran and scattered in various directions. And finally, the Devatas took shelter of Lord Brahma, who also reprimanded and chastised Indra for having insulted and offended his spiritual master Brihaspati. But Lord Brahma also then finally gave them a solution to the Devatas, that they should now appoint another Guru, another spiritual master, and by his assistance they could again win back their heavenly kingdom. And Brahma directed them to a great sage by name Vishvarupa. Vishvarupa is the son of a great sage by name Tvashta. So Tvashta's son Vishvarupa was now approached by the Devatas headed by Indra, who requested Vishvarupa to become their Guru. Vishvarupa consented, and now again the Devatas began their processes of sacrifice and engaging in various religious activities by the direction of Vishvarupa, and shortly they could again win over the demons. Once when Vishwarupa was engaged in the sacrifice, chanting the various mantras ending with Swaha, with the oblations and with the offerings, it was noticed by Indra that Vishwarupa was offering the oblations of sacrifice to the Devatas loudly and in secret manner. He was also gently chanting the mantras and offering one portion of the oblations to the demons as well. When Indra could understand this, he immediately impetuously he severed the head of Vishwarupa and killed him. Now again Indra was grievously afflicted with the great sin of killing a great sage, and somehow again after undergoing a severe form of atonement, Indra could again counteract the sinful reaction of killing Vishwarupa. But meanwhile, the father of Vishwarupa, that is the sage Tvashta, became very angry at this deceitful killing of his son Vishwarupa by Indra, and he then performed a very great sacrifice in order to obtain a son who would be able to kill Indra. So, while chanting the mantras, Tvashta Rishi made a slight mistake, due to which he did obtain another son who came from the sacrifice, but one who was not capable of killing Indra, but one who would be a great enemy of Indra. So this person, this son of Tvashta, who appeared by his mystical potency, is Vritra, or also known as Vritrasura. He appeared as a demon with very fierce and fearsome features. He had a gigantic body, and he had very fierce locks of hair and teeth and all kinds of fierce looking features. And this Vritrasura now immediately proceeded to the battlefield and fought with the Devatas. And single-handedly, Vritrasura was so strong and so powerful that single-handedly he fought with the entire host of all the 33 crore Devatas and easily defeated them. The Devatas ran away in fear from the battlefield from Vritrasura, and now again they went to the ultimate authority. They offered a lot of prayers to the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu now directed them that this time your opponent is my man, he is my pure devotee. Anyway, I have a different plan for Vritrasura. You want to gain victory over Vritrasura. You want to regain your Svargaloka, your heavenly kingdom. So I shall give anyway a solution to that. So Lord Vishnu directed them to approach the great sage Dadhichi and ask for him for his asti, for the bones of the great sage Dadhichi, and then prepare a weapon called the Vajra, which would be made from the bones of Dadhichi Rishi. So that would be capable of, only that would be capable of killing this Vritrasura. So now being directed by the Supreme Lord, the Devatas came to the ashram of Dadhichi, to Dadhichi Ashrama, which is even now present in the state of Uttar Pradesh. near the holy place of Naimisharanya. Just about 20 kilometers from Naimisharanya is Dadhichi Ashrama, the ashrama of Dadhichi Rishi. So all the devatas came and requested Dadhichi and asked him, begged him to give his asthi or bones. Dadhichi was a completely self-realized soul, and he thought, although he understood the entire plan of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, yet he thought of some joking conversation with the devatas. He said, have you gone mad? Have you gone crazy? Have you gone insane? Is this something that you should ask for? And is it something that anyone can give? Life is the most dear for anyone. You are asking me to die and donate my bones to you for your selfish purposes? Get lost. So when the devatas heard that, they again very humbly glorified Dadhichi to be a great self-realized person who has surpassed the bodily conception of life. And now Dadhichi smiled and said that actually this is a call from the Supreme Lord Vishnu. He is calling me to come back to the spiritual world, giving up my mortal frame and my existence in this material world. So never mind. Now Dadhichi agreed to their proposal and sat in a deep meditation on the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and he attained liberation and went back home, back to Godhead. And then the devatas collected the asthi, the bones of Dadhichi, and prepared a very invincible weapon of Vajra, the thunderbolt, surcharged with the potency of Lord Vishnu and by the austerities of Dadhichi Maharshi. All the devatas who had been previously defeated by Vritrasura single-handedly now returned back to the battlefield and again confronted Vritrasura. So now when Vritrasura was again confronted by the devatas who had come with renewed energy and with great enthusiasm to fight, so Vritrasura again turned his attention to the devatas. It is also very important to note here that in this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a very special and unique story that you would not find in any of the other Puranas. Normally, in all the Puranas, the heroes are the devatas and the villains are the demons. But here it's the other way round. The hero is a demon. The superhero is a demon by name Vritrasura. He is the superhero because he is a Mahabhagavata, a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. And in comparison to him, in relation to him, the Devatas are now in the position of Asuras. They are the demons because in comparison to the Shuddha Bhakti of Vritrasura, they are very lowly situated as Sakama Bhaktas, as materialistic devotees of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. The Devatas headed by Indra are also Bhaktas, are also devotees, but they are Sakama Bhaktas. They are devotees with material desires. And therefore they are on a much lower platform than the pure devotees like Prahlada, Dhruva, Narada and even Vritrasura. So Vritrasura is the real hero, the superhero of this narration. So Vritrasura now turned to again fight with the Devatas. But seeing the might of the Devatas and their great enthusiasm, all the other demon leaders, they all ran away from the battlefield, leaving only Vritrasura alone in the battlefield. So Vritrasura observed that the Devatas were still attacking even the fleeing demons. So Vritrasura chastised and reprimanded. He spoke words of chastisement both to the demons and to the devatas. He reminded the demons of the proper duty of a fighter, a chivalrous person who would prefer to even die in a battle than flee away in fear from the battlefield. And so he called upon all the demon leaders to come back, to stop and halt and fight with the devatas. And he also chastised the devatas by saying that you are such shameless creatures that you are attacking these demons who are running away out of fear. What kind of dharma is this? The religious principles explain that one should not attack anyone in the battlefield who is fearful and who is fleeing away from the fight, from the battle. So, speaking to both the demons and the devatas in this manner, now Vritrasura began to fight with the devatas. Again, single-handedly, Vritrasura fought with the combined forces of all the devatas. And Indra used many of his weapons. Vritrasura very insignificantly he caught whatever weapon was hurled by Indra towards him, and with a counter attack, with a very effortless counter attack, Indra's carrier elephant by name Airavata fell down along with Indra. So that was the mighty power and strength of Vritrasura in this battle. So when Indra became very morose, he became very ashamed that how can I continue my fight? This Vritrasura seems invincible. Whatever I do, I am unable to overcome his power and strength. So at that time, Vritrasura he himself spoke to Indra, reminding him of the right duty of a warrior on the battlefield. He reminded Indra that his duty was to fight, although even Vritrasura very well knew that he is going to die in this battle. Yet he was fighting and continuing the battle with Indra. We find in the 11th chapter of the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam the very wonderful qualities, the great devotional qualities of Vritrasura. Vritrasura personally encouraged Indra that stand up and fight and use that special weapon that is given by the Supreme Lord Vishnu, that you have prepared from the bones of Dadichi. Use that weapon. That will be able to kill me. Your purpose is to kill me, and my purpose is also to be killed in this battle, so that I can attain the supreme victory of gaining liberation from all material bondage and go back to the spiritual world. So, hearing these words, Indra became completely bewildered that I have never come across a demon speaking the words of a Mahabhagavata, a pure devotee. So even Indra hesitated for some time that what should I do? Is he a asura, or is he a demon, or is he a great pure devotee? His words are not to be the standard, the high standard of the words used by Vritrasura, are not to be found even among the assembly of all the devatas. He seems to be a Mahabhagavata, a pure devotee. So now with Vritrasura continued his conversation with Indra by saying that although you may externally gain victory in this battle, Indra, you would be the greatest loser, because in spite of being victorious, you will continue to rot in this material world, in the cycle of birth and death, until you decide to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Whereas I, although losing in this battle, I would gain the supreme victory of attaining liberation and going back home, back to Godhead. So now even Indra hesitated to attack Vritrasura, because he could understand that Vritrasura is not a demon, not an ordinary person. He is not even a Devata. He is much greater. He is a Mahabhagavata, a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. But Vritrasura himself again encouraged Indra not to hesitate and perform the duty of fighting in the battle. So the battle resumed, and when Indra attacked him even with the Vajra weapon prepared from the bones of Dadichi, Vritrasura caught this weapon with his left hand, and again he hurled it back at Indra, who once more fell down from his elephant carrier Airavata, and this time it was a great embarrassment for Indra. And now in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th chapter of the 6th canto, it is very beautifully explained about the transcendental qualities of Vritrasura. When Vritrasura observed that Indra had become completely helpless in this battle, he then offered many wonderful prayers. Indra now, when Vritrasura was not even fighting, he again decided to hurl an attack upon Vritrasura. But Vritrasura again, he saw Indra coming, and just by already his two arms had been lopped off, had been chopped off by Indra's weapons. So this time Vritrasura, he just inhaled very strongly, and by this he gulped Indra within his mouth and swallowed him inside his stomach. So now Vritrasura thought, anyway, the battle is completed, it is finished, and let me now offer my prayers to the Supreme Lord. I was supposed to die by the divine weapons surcharged with the energy of the Supreme Lord and by the penance of Dadichi, but it did not happen in that manner. Let me completely contemplate, completely fix my consciousness upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and in this way let me now return back to the spiritual world. The way that was ordained somehow has not happened. So when Vritrasura began to contemplate in this manner, the prayers offered by Vritrasura are exemplary and the best ideal prayers to be offered by a person who is about to die. Vritrasura prays in 6.11.24, Aham hare tava padeka mula dasanudaso bhavitasmi bhuyaha manasmareta supater gunamste grinitava karma karotu kayaha. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead Shri Hari, Aham Hare Tava Pada Mula, when will I again be able to be a servant of the eternal servants of your lotus feet, who find shelter only at your lotus feet? Aham hare tava padaika mula dasanudaso bhavitasmi bhuyaha. O Lord of my life, when again shall I become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your divine qualities and forms and pastimes? When will again my words always glorify your activities and divine pastimes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship? Vritrasura further prays in 6.11.25. This is a very, very beautiful prayer. Nanaka prishtham na cha parameshtyam na sarvabhaumam na rasadhipatyam na yoga siddhira punarbhavam va samanjasatva virahaya kangshe. O my Lord, the source of all benedictions, Vritrasura is praying that I do not aspire for any material benediction. Although you can fulfill all the desires of a living being, I do not desire to go to Dhruvaloka or to the heavenly planets or to even Brahmaloka. I do not want to be the sovereign supreme ruler of the entire earth, nor of the lower planetary systems. I do not wish to be the master of all the powers of mystic yoga, nor do I want even apunarbhavam or liberation. I only want to serve eternally your lotus feet, my Lord. This is the prayer in pure devotional service, in Shuddha Bhakti. Next, in verse 26, this is again a very exemplary and beautiful prayer. Vritrasura prays that Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsatarakshudhagtaha priyam priyeva vyushitam vishanna manoravindakshadidrikshate tvam. O lotus-eyed Supreme Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look to their mother to return and come back and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes always anxiously await the time of milking, when they can meet their mother and drink the milk of their mothers, or like a morose wife whose husband is away from home always cherishes that when her beloved husband would return and satisfy her. Likewise, Vritrasura says that I am always yearning for the opportunity to render direct service unto you, my Supreme Lord. So that should be the hankering of the Jivatma, to go back and meet the Supreme Lord, the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna. So offering all these wonderful prayers, Vritrasura sat in deep meditation on the Supreme Lord. Meanwhile, Indra, who had been swallowed by Vritrasura, entered into the stomach, into the abdomen of Vritrasura, and because he was holding the Vajra weapon made from the bones of the Dadichi, because of that he was protected and he did not die. And after a very long time, he cut open the abdomen of Vritrasura, who had already attained Samadhi, complete absorption of his consciousness at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And now Indra came out from the stomach of Vritrasura, and then he cut the neck of Vritrasura, who had already by this time attained Samadhi, and also he attained the highest, the most exalted destination of going back home, back to Godhead, to the supreme eternal kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka. So what Indra did was just the dead body, the mortal remains of Vritrasura were severed by Indra. So in this way, the wonderful history of the great Asura devotee of the Lord, Vritrasura, is very beautifully narrated in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you have any questions about today's session, please do post it in the WhatsApp group or in the comments box. Please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please do join us for the continuation of the systematic study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.